I think we've all been in these scenarios where we find it difficult to explain something complicated to somebody. So I think the key really is to connect with the other person and to kind of guide them to the answer or the explanation without explicitly saying it. Now, personally, I love to ask questions. I'm a question. I love to play 20 questions. I love questions. I love asking questions to learn. I love asking questions to help others learn too. And the first way I can do that when I'm explaining something difficult to somebody is to ask them questions to gauge their understanding. So if I'm explaining respiration to somebody, I might ask them like, "Hey, do you know the purpose of respiration? Do you know what the alveoli are? Do you know what the structures in the respiratory system are?" Just asking these basic questions if you're trying to explain something more complicated to make sure that they have the building blocks they need to build a bigger picture of what you're trying to explain. And the second thing I like to do is relate it to real life. Whatever I'm talking about, I like to try and relate it to real life. I like to ask, like, why do we need oxygen? Like, how fast does a car go? Do you know an oxygen molecule can go even faster? Like, things like that. And I like to use analogies too. I like to use analogies to explain things because I think it helps concepts stick better. So I might say, like, oh, hey, so the oxygens, when they all rush in, there's so many of them that they're in a competition to bind to the hemoglobin, right? And in that competition, it wins because there's so many of them. And doing these questions, I kind of build on these smaller concepts, and I like to guide them to the bigger picture. I like to ask them questions, and I like them to solve it themselves because I think when I'm asking a lot of questions, it engages them, it makes them more of an active learner, it really encourages them to make those connections in their head and focus on the big picture of things. And then eventually they'll get to the point where they've answered the question themselves at the end. Whatever I'm trying to explain, that complicated thing I'm trying to explain, it should answer something. And I should ask that question to the person at the end, and they should be able to answer it. And then one little last test I like to do, just to make sure the other person really truly understands what I taught them, is to have them teach it back to me. I think at the most fundamental level of education, I think the best way to gauge if somebody is really involved, if they really understand something, is have them explain it back to you when after you explain it to them or teach them.